لتنذر قوما ما أنذر آباؤهم فهم غافلون لقد حق القول على أكثرهم فهم لا يؤمنون إنا جعلنا في أعناقهم أغلالا فهي إلى الأذقان فهم مقمحون وجعلنا من بين أيديهم سدا ومن خلفهم سدا فأغشيناهم فهم لا يبصرون وسواء عليهم أنذرتهم أم لم تنذرهم لا يؤمنون إنما تنذر من اتبع ذكر وخشي الرحمن بالغيب فبشره بمغفرة وأجر كريم إنا نحن نحيي الموتى ونكتب ما قدموا وآثارهم وكل شيء أحصيناه في إمام مبين وضرب لهم مثلا أصحاب القرية إذ جاءها المرسلون إذ أرسلنا إليهم اثنين فكذبوهما فعززنا بثالث فقالوا إنا إليكم مرسلون قالوا ما أنتم إلا بشر مثلنا وما أنزل الرحمن من شيء إن أنتم إلا تكذبون قالوا ربنا يعلم إنا إليكم لمرسلون وما علينا إلا البلاغ المبين قالوا إنا تطيرنا بكم لئن لم تنتهوا لنرجمنكم وليمسنكم منا عذاب أليم قالوا طائركم معكم أئن ذكرتم بل أنتم قوم مسرفون وجاء من أقصى المدينة رجل يسعى قال يا قوم اتبعوا المرسلين اتبعوا من لا يسألكم أجرا وهم مهتدون وما لي لا أعبد الذي فطرني وإليه ترجعون أأتخذ من دونه آلهة إن يردن الرحمن من ذر لا تغن عني شفاعتهم شيئا ولا ينقذون إني إذا لفي ضلال مبين إني آمنت بربكم فاسمعون قيل ادخل الجنة قال يا ليت قومي يعلمون بما غفر لي ربي وجعلني من المكرمين وما أنزلنا على قومه من بعد من جند من السماء وما كنا منزلين إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم خامدون يا حسرة على العباد ما يأتيهم من رسول إلا كانوا به يستهزئون ألم يروا كم أخلقنا قبلهم من القرون أنهم إليهم لا يرجعون وإن كل لما جميع لدينا محضرون وآية لهم الأرض ميتة أحييناها وأخرجنا منها حبا فمنه يأكلون وجعلنا فيها جنات من نخيل وأعناب وفجرنا فيها من العيون ليأكلوا من ثمره وما عملت أيديهم أفلا يشكرون سبحان الذي خلق الأزواج كلها مما تنبت الأرض ومن أنفسهم ومما لا يعلمون وآية لهم الليل نسلك منه النهار فإذا هم مظلمون والشمس تجري لمستقر لها ذلك تقدير العزيز العليم والقمر قدرناه منازل حتى عاد كل أرجون القديم لا الشمس ينبغي لها أن تدرك القمر ولا الليل سابق النهار وكل في فلك يسبحون وآية لهم أن حملنا ذريتهم في الفلك مشحون وخلقنا لهم من مثله ما يركبون وإن نشاء نغرقهم فلا شريك لهم ولا هم ينقذون إلا رحمة منا ومتاعا إلى حين وإذا قيل لهم اتقوا ما بين أيديكم وما خلفكم لعلكم ترحمون وما تأتيهم من آية من آيات ربهم إلا كانوا عنها معرضين وإذا قيل لهم أنفقوا مما رزقكم الله قال الذين كفروا للذين آمنوا أنطعم من لو يشاء الله أطعمه إن أنتم إلا في ضلال مبين ويأكلون متى هذا الوعد إن كنتم صادقين ما ينذرون إلا صيحة واحدة تأخذهم وهم يخصمون فلا يستطيعون توصية ولا إلى أهلهم يرجعون ونفخ في الصور فإذا هم من الأجداث إلى ربهم ينسلون قالوا يا ويلنا من بعثنا من مرقدنا هذا ما وعد الرحمن وصدق المرسلون إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم جميع لدينا محضرون فاليوم لا تظلم نفس شيئا ولا تجزون إلا ما كنتم تعملون إن أصحاب الجنة اليوم في شغل فاكهون هم وأزواجهم في ظلال على الأرائك متكئون لهم فيها فاكهة ولهم ما يدعون سلام قولا من رب رحيم وامتازوا اليوم أيها المجرمون ألم أحد إليكم يا بني آدم لا تعبدوا الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين وأن اعبدوني هذا صراط مستقيم ولقد أزل منكم سبيلا كثيرا أفلا تكونوا تعقلون هذه جهنم التي كنتم توعدون اصلوها اليوم بما كنتم تكفرون اليوم نختم على أفواههم وتكلمنا أيديهم وتشهد أرجلهم بما كانوا يكسبون ولو نشاء لمسنا على أعينهم فاستبقوا الصراط فأنى يبصرون ولو نشاء لمسكنا على مكانتهم فما استطاعوا مزيا ولا يرجعون ومن نؤمره ننخش في الخلق أفلا يأكلون وما لم الشهر وما ينبغي له إن هو إلا ذكر وقرآن مبين لينذر من كان حيا ويحق القول على الكافرين أولم يروا أنا خلقنا لهم مما عملت أيدينا أنعاما فهم لها مالكون وذللناها لهم فمنها ركوبهم ومنها يأكلون ولهم فيها منافع ومشارب أفلا يشكرون واتخذوا من دون الذي آلهة لعلهم ينصرون لا يستطيعون نصرهم وهم لهم جند مهدرون فلا يحزنك قولهم إنا نعلم ما يسرون وما يعلنون أولم ير الإنسان أنا خلقنا من نطفة فإذا هم خصيم مبين وضرب لنا مثلا وسع خلقه قال من يحيي العظام وهي رحيم قل يحيي الذي أنشأها أول مرة وهو بكل خلق عليم الذي جعل لكم من الشجر الأحجر نارا فإذا أنتم منه توقدون أوليس الذي خلق السماوات والأرض بقادر على أن يخلق مثلهم بلى وهو الخلاق العليم إنما أمره إذا أراد شيئا أن يقول له كن فيكون فسبحان الذي بيده ملكوت كل شيء وإليه ترجعون الفاتحة.
يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر والله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمد رسول الله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أشهد أن محمد رسول الله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أشهد أن عليا ولي الله. صلوات الله وسلامه عليه. أشهد أن عليا حجة الله. صلوات الله وسلامه. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. حي على خير العمل. حي على خير العمل. الله أكبر والله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. لا إله إلا الله. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطاهرين.
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم. أشهد أن محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم وأن علي ولي الله عليه الصلاة والسلام. هيا على الصلاة. هيا على الصلاة. هيا على الفلاح. هيا على الفلاح. هيا على خير العمل. هيا على خير العمل. قد قامت الصلاة. قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. الله أكبر. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إنا أعطيناك الكوثر فصلي لربك وانحر إن شانئك هو الأبتر. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع له لمن حمد. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. كذلك الله ربنا. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد الله أكبر. استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد. سبحان الله والحمد لله. سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله. استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم واحشرنا معهم ولعن أعداءهم الله أكبر. بسم الله وبالله والحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. وعجل فرجهم. لا إله إلا الله. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم ذو الجلال والإكرام وأتوب إليه. أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم ذو الجلال والإكرام وأتوب إليه. أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم ذو الجلال والإكرام وأتوب إليه. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم. أشهد أن محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم وأن عليا حجة الله عليه الصلاة والسلام. حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل. قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. الله أكبر. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. كذلك الله ربنا. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. رب اجعل لي مقيم الصلاة ومن ذريتي ربنا وتقبل دعاء. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع له لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر.
سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بحول الله وقوته يقوم وأقعد. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع علاه لمن حمد. الله أكبر.
سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر.
سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع علاه لمن حمد. الله أكبر.
سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر.
سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم يا خير المسؤولين ويا خير المعطين. وارزق يا علي من فضلك فإنك ذو فضل عظيم.
الله أكبر. بسم الله وبالله والحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. لا إله إلا الله. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. استغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم ذو الجلال والإكرام وأتوب إليه. استغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم ذو الجلال والإكرام وأتوب إليه. استغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم ذو الجلال والإكرام وأتوب إليه.
I'm reading glasses, so I'm trying to make it bigger. پر محمد وآل محمد صلوات. جب یاد سکینہ کو تیری آتی ہے بابا، جب یاد سکینہ کو تیری آتی ہے بابا، کانوں سے ٹپکتا ہے لہو، شانوں پہ دیکھو، کانوں سے ٹپکتا ہے لہو، شانوں پہ دیکھو، ظالم کی اذیت، وہ ظالم کی اذیت مجھے تڑپاتی ہے بابا، جب یاد سکینہ کو تیری آتی ہے بابا، مر جاؤں گی پیاسی نہ کبھی، مانگوں گی پانی، مر جاؤں گی پیاسی نہ کبھی، مانگوں گی پانی، اصغر کی مجھے پیاس، وہ اصغر کی مجھے پیاس جو یاد آتی ہے بابا، جب یاد سکینہ کو تیری آتی ہے بابا، جب تک تیرے سینے سے نہ لگ جائے سکینہ، جب تک تیرے سینے سے نہ لگ جائے سکینہ، زندہ میں اسے نیند، ہاں زندہ میں اسے نیند کہاں آتی ہے بابا، جب یاد سکینہ کو تیری آتی ہے بابا، جلتے ہوئے خیموں کے نظارے ہیں نظر میں، ہاں جلتے ہوئے خیموں کے نظارے ہیں نظر میں، یہ بات خیالوں سے، یہ بات خیالوں سے कहाँ जाती है बाबा जब याद सकीना को तेरी आती है बाबा पर मोहम्मद व आले मोहम्मद सलावत
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Sayyid Hasan, Rizvi, respected elders, dear brothers and sisters in Iman, Assalamu alaikum, Jamia wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Surah Fatiha is requested for all marhumin listed on the screen, as well as all other marhumin. Surah Al-Mubarak Al-Fatiha. Dua Shifai Mary's is requested for all those in need here and elsewhere, as well as those listed on the screen. Let us recite together. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. أَمَّن يُجِيبُ الْمُضْطَرَّ إِذَا دَعَاهُ وَيَكْشِفُ السُّوءَ 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 أَمَّن يُجِيبُ الْمُضْطَرَّ إِذَا دَعَاهُ وَيَكْشِفُ السُّوءَ. Ya Allah, let us now invite Sayyid Hasan Rizvi to please come forward for tonight's Majlis. Wa Muhammad wa Muhammad Salawat.
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد ثم الصلاة والسلام والتحية والإكرام على أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الأولين والآخرين إلى قيام يوم الدين أما بعد صلوات على محمد وآل محمد. Mu'mineen, mu'minat, brothers and sisters in Islam and Iman, Salamun alaykum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. In Surah Al-Tahrim, Surah 66, ayah number 6, Allah says there, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu, qu anfusakum wa ahlikum nara. وقودها ناس والحجارة عليها ملائكة غلاظ شداد لا يعصون الله ما أمرهم ويفعلون ما يؤمرون. Allah there calls to the mu'mineen and says, protect yourselves and your family from nar, from the fire. And this fire it's fueled by people and stones. There are angels that are harsh and severe, that do not do any marsiya and disobey Allah, and they do whatever they are commanded by Allah. They do that. You know, when you first look at an ayah like this, it seems fairly straightforward, right? It's seems like, okay, if we were just to come across this in a casual reading of the Quran, we'd say, okay, I have to protect myself and my family, right? I have to be a good protector of my family, teach them Islam, teach them right from wrong, things like that. The second part of it, though, just saying that, protect your family, save your family, but then this very descriptive nature of hellfire and punishment seems a little harsh, right? It seems like a very extreme change of language. Normally when we're discussing family issues and tarbiyah and things like that, we usually try to say it from more of a, I don't want to say positive standpoint, but to take it a bit easier, right? To be a bit more gentle. But over here, Allah seems to be saying with a lot of emphasis that no, you have to protect them from this fire, and then with details that this is the fuel for the fire, and the angels who are assigned to punish people in that fire, there's no mercy there. This is severe, this is harsh. So perhaps according to what some of the mufassirin say here is that there's probably more than meets the eye in this ayah here. There's a lot more of a deeper understanding that with a first glance and a casual reading, we'd probably miss out on. And one of the other pieces of evidence there too is this is like many of the ayat that begin with Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu. And there's a whole discussion about what all of these ayat that are addressed to mu'mineen, those who have iman, what is the point of these ayat? Because we have a lot of Ya ayyuhal, right? Calling to different groups. Muslimin, Nas, humans in general, just Muslims, the kuffar, etc. But then groups like this, it's targeting mu'mineen. Now, one of the reasons some mufassirin say is that there's some general advice because, if even you and I were just, let's say, casual Muslims, right? We make mistakes, but we're not super serious about the deen and the religion. If, let's say, we read something like this, we would probably consider ourselves to be mu'mineen. Like, I have iman, I believe in Islam, Allah, Quran, Ahlul Bayt, Day of Judgment, Prophets, all of that. And you read something like this, like, okay, I got it. This ayat is addressing somebody like me who's a Muslim. I got to make sure I take care of my family. Okay, done. Next ayah. For a actual mu'min, a mu'min at a deeper level, because we know there's different levels of iman, somebody who sees that, Allah is probably addressing a deeper point over here, they would probably go back and give this ayah another reading and see, is there something else that I'm missing over here? Is there some deeper point that I have missed? Inshallah, hopefully for tonight, we're going to go through some of these things and see that in just this short ayah, Allah seems to, when He's talking about this principle of tarbiyah, of upbringing, parenting, protecting one's home and household, that the sort of who, the what, the how, all of this is being addressed in just a few lines. And if we pay attention to a few key words in this ayah, even just the beginning, there's a lot more that we can, inshallah, learn from over here. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So first, this whole idea of protection, right? Saying, okay, mu'mineen, listen, I want you to, this first verb that's used is qu. Qu is the plural form of commanding, telling people to protect. Right? It's similar to the verb that we say, رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً وَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ. Right? So that same qaf that you see there is over here. So the root letters here are waw, qaf, and ya, waqaya. And it comes from the root word wiqaya, which just means protection. Interestingly enough, wiqaya also means shield. Now again, there's points here to reflect on. When we think about the idea of protection, right? Allah saying protect your families. Okay. The different types of protection that we engage in and that we use in our lives, there's two different types, if we want to break it down. One is what you call precautionary, or maybe additional, and one is necessary. So precautionary would be something like this. When we're in the kitchen and you're cooking, right? Let's say you're just making some eggs in the morning. Do normally, and if you actually do any little bit of cooking, like making an omelet or something like that, do you put on gloves? Right? Do you put on an apron or anything like that? No. Normally, there's really no danger there. That a person, if they know what they're doing, they can cook an egg or cook an omelet, and there's no problem. You don't need oven mitts or gloves. You don't need an apron. You don't need eye protection or anything like that. Again, provided you know what you're doing to some degree. So you just go, you cook, and you're fine. Now, if somebody decides that, okay, maybe I will put on an oven mitt, or maybe I will put on an apron, well, that's precautionary. In case something spills or let's say some of the oil comes out. Okay, maybe. But you don't actually need it. It's not like you're preventing anything that's absolutely going to take place, right? So that's one type of protection. That's precautionary, like just in case. There's another type, which is a necessary type of protection. Now, same sort of cooking example. If you're baking something in the oven, can you pull out a baking sheet or some dish without any oven mitts? No, obviously not, right? Unless you want to get burnt. So over there, the reason why you have to put on some sense of protection, right, whether using gloves, oven mitts, whatever it is because if you don't, then ilzaman, without a doubt, you will definitely get burnt. So you have to do this, otherwise you will be damaged, you will get hurt. Wiqaya has this second meaning. Wiqaya means a protection from something that if you don't do anything, if you just leave it alone, you will get hurt. And this is why, over and over again, if you look in the Quran, this same verb is used when it's talking about protect us from the fire, protect us from Jahannam, protect my family, X, Y, Z. Over and over again, it's used. Why? Because the idea that the Mufassirin are saying here is just based on the Arabic, that if you do nothing, if you and I do nothing for ourselves, for our families, then the natural conclusion, the result will be Jahannam and hellfire. Now, why that happens, inshallah, we'll get to that in the third point. What's interesting is that some of the other words that come from the same root, which we've probably talked about before, but just as a reminder, right? These same root letters, waqaya. The words taqwa also come from these same root letters. Taqwa is also a necessary protection. It's something, it's like a second sense for somebody, or for all my comic book fans. It's like your spider sense, right? Is that you're understanding and you're drawn to protection, and you know when danger is coming, something would actually damage you, so then you have that sense in you. Taqiyya also comes from this same root, because taqiyya becomes wajib in certain circumstances. When you are about to be physically harmed, you, your family, etc., then according to many marajit, taqiyya becomes wajib there. If somebody, this is not just a random thing. This happens not so much to us in the kind of West, I think we're sheltered from this, but people who are living in countries where they are harassed by Wahhabi, Salafi types, they have to keep this sort of tool of taqiyya in their pockets constantly. They might be driving on a bus from their country like India or Pakistan towards Ziyarat. They want to go to Iran or Iraq, and they take a bus there, and on their way, these are stories that happen a lot, unfortunately. They're stopped, they're held at gunpoint, and they say, tell us your names. Because they know that certain names of the Ahlul Bayt, they'll say these are probably Shias. Tell us, what do you think of, the first three Khalifas? What do you think of this person, this person? And at that point, they have to engage in taqiyya to save themselves and save their families. This is there's a lot of ahkam that you and I have nothing to do with because, alhamdulillah, we're in, this kind of sheltered environment. But for other people, this sort of protection, you have to know your ahkam. You have to know when you have to do this. Sometimes it doesn't make sense to, I'm just going to stand up for the imam and just say whatever it is, if your life or your family's life is in jeopardy there. So all of this is, again, reflecting the idea of a necessary form of protection. If we don't engage in it, as Allah is saying in this ayah, if you do not protect yourself and your family, then the nar, the fire that comes, is one that's shadeed, it's harsh. These angels who are assigned, there's no room for, in a sense, mercy over here. And there's a deeper discussion about this, which I don't think we'll have time for. But again, it's connecting these 2 points. Allah is saying, look, at this point, if you've allowed yourself, because you haven't protected yourself and your family, if you've come to that point now where you are going to end up in hellfire because of not protecting yourself properly, then this is going to be shadeed. It's going to be very, very difficult for you in the next world. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. This is why some of our mujtahideen, when they look at ayat like this from the standpoint of ijtihad, right, as a mujtahid, as an ayatullah, some of them say, look, when commands like this in the Quran are given, like protect your family, Allah is not saying, hey, it's good if you protect. He's saying, no, you protect. It's a command, an amr. So some fuqaha say, look, this takes the meaning of wujub. It is wajib to engage in this. In the same way, we have many of the ayat which tell you to fast, etc., etc. The same commands, Allah is using the same form over here. So some mujtahideen say, look, this idea of protecting yourself and your family is a wajib duty upon every wali, upon every head of the household. Now, where does this duty, who does it extend to? So over here, the first point we talked about was the nature of protection itself. What does that mean? We said it's this necessary protection you have to engage. All of us do. Now, okay, but who? Who are the protectors in this sort of equation? Let's look at one hadith from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. This hadith comes in a few different forms, both in Sunni and Shia books, right? Pretty much the same wording, with just a few changes here and there. He's reported to have said, "Kullukum ra'." Every single one of you, every single person is a ra', meaning you're a guardian. You are some level of protector. You have to engage in this custodianship and guardianship. وَكُلُّكُمْ مَسْئُولٌ عَنْ رَعِيَّتِهِ. And every single one of you, being a guardian or a custodian, you are responsible. You are mas'ul over your ra'iyya, your subjects. Those you have to watch over. You have to watch over them. You have duties. You're responsible for them. And then the Prophet starts to go through a few different groups. The first one, فَالْإِمَامِ. And in another version of the hadith, وَالْأَمِيرُ الَّذِي عَلَى النَّاسِ. So any sort of leader, right, in that sense, ra'. So an imam or any sort of leader, amir, whatever, anybody who takes a leadership position, they are somebody who is a guardian and a custodian. وَهُوَ الْمَسْئُولُ عَنْ رَعِيَّتِهِ. And they are responsible for their subjects or their citizens, right? Whoever is under their guardianship and custodianship. Then next, وَالرَّجُلُ رَعْ. Then a man, a male, he is a guardian and a custodian, عَلَى أَهْلِ بَيْتِهِ. Then he is a guardian over his family, over the people in his household. وَهُوَ مَسْئُولٌ عَنْهُمْ. He is responsible for what goes on in that house. He is responsible for them. وَالْمَرْأَةُ رَاعِيَةٌ. The female, in this sense, the wife. She's also a guardian. Guardian of who? رَاعِيَةٌ عَلَى أَهْلِ بَيْتِ بَعْلِهَا وَوُلِّهِ. So she now is the custodian and the guardian, or in other words, a wali, of everyone in the household, meaning the household of her husband, and specifically the kids. So this wilaya now, the father is, in a sense of this traditional version of wilaya, is you have the father overseeing everything in the household. Then the secondary form of wilaya comes upon the mother, specifically with regards to the kids. So, sometimes people break it up and say, oh, it's just the mother's responsibility. Well, it's specifically mentioned, yes, but remember, the wilaya of the wife and the kids is all coming under the father too. Right? The same way that it works in a corporate environment. If someone that is below a manager or something like that, if they mess up, well, then it usually comes back to the manager, right? That's the idea. It's not just somebody who messed up their work. Like, okay, well, why weren't you watching what they were doing? So usually there's something higher up that is a problem that usually causes something, messes up something farther below. وَهِيَ مَسْئُولَةٌ عَنْهُمْ. So she is also responsible for what happens amongst her household, among her children. Then another one, وَالْعَبْدُ رَاعٍ عَلَى الْمَالِ سَيِّدِهِ. This one doesn't apply to us, but for the servant, or an abd, right, in a household. He is responsible and a custodian over the property of his Sayyid, his master. Right? So obviously we don't have that form over here. وَهُوَ مَسْئُولًا عَنْهُ. أَلَا فَكُلُّكُمْ رَاعٍ. It's like, don't you understand that every single one of you is going to have some form of guardianship? Every single one of you is going to be responsible for somebody. Every single one of you. وَكُلُّكُمْ مَسْئُولًا عَنْ رَعِيَّةٍ. And every single one of you, you are responsible for the duties and the actions of your subjects and who's under you. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So in a very clear way, for us, those of us who are fathers, those who are mothers, our household is where this immediately extends to. That, hopefully together the mother and the father are working together to establish a proper household and to protect their family from nar, right? Protect them, to give them the right teachings. Like, okay, well, that's fine, we understand we're responsible, but where does that responsibility go? How far? And we talked about what protection means. What it means is what's necessary. You have to do it, it's necessary. If you don't do it, then you're going to be leading your family, and yourselves obviously, into hellfire. We said the protectors here are the husband and wife primarily, right? If they're of age, right? And the kids they're not really going to be responsible yet. Now, okay, well, what exactly do we do here though? What form of protection is being described over here? Right? So a lot of times when people have this question, when this issue comes up, and this happens a lot, right? A lot of the questions that speakers and myself, I get a lot too, are about parenting, are about tarbiyah. And what do I do here? This issue came up. My kid is asking about this, how do I respond? I'm having issues with, daughter's hijab, how do I respond? Or my son is saying, I don't want to pray, what do I do there? Constantly people are asking. Sometimes it's about Islam. Sometimes it's trying to encourage kids to do something, right? I want my child to join me when I perform a'mal, but they don't want to. I want my child to join me when I read Quran, but they don't want to. Sometimes it's not that. Sometimes it's something a bit different, right? Sometimes it has to do with something a bit more. Sometimes it's these socio-political issues that are happening, right? All these issues that are going on right now, sometimes people don't have that level of relationship with their children where they know that there's things obviously happening, in public school, or they're seeing it in cartoons, in the media. We all know what's going on. And they want to be able to discuss it with their kids, but their kids, so how was school? How are you doing? Everything's fine, all right? And that's it. They don't open up. They say nothing. So then I get people who come and say, Hasan, how do I get my kids to open up to me? All right, so that sometimes is the issue. Or maybe the child is open. They're actually talking, but they're on the complete opposite side. Right? Maybe the mother and father have one set of, let's say, traditional conservative Islamic values, and the children, because of the way that they've probably been brainwashed in public schooling, are coming out with a whole bunch of more left-wing ideas. And they say, I don't know how to respond. Or their friends are like this, they have this lifestyle, this is what they see on social media, I don't know how to respond to that stuff. So these questions are coming constantly. So normally what gets asked, and what gets asked of me a lot is, okay, just give me the answer, tell me the answer, how do I respond to them? They want to know, why are dogs najis? Give me the answer. Why is chess haram? Give me the answer, right? Just give me the answer so I can give it to my child. And I'm wondering, do you think that that's actually going to work? Do you think that that's the solution to the problem is I just give you some, little template that I write down a script for you, I give you the script and you go and recite that to your child and that'll be enough? No. Look at what Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam has to say. He's reported to have said in this famous hadith that I'm sure you all remember, Man nasaba nafsuhu linnas imama. Whoever has appointed themselves as an imam for people. And that even means when you have decided to become a parent, you have made yourself an imam in that household. Right? We just went through that previous hadith. Prophet saying, look, you are in charge of people in your house, both mother and father. You're in charge of this household now. You're responsible. You're mas'ul for that. فَلْيَبْدَأُ بِالتَّعْلِيمِ نَفْسِ. Let this person, this imam, this leader, this father, this mother, before they start going out and making themselves a leader, make sure that this person starts doing ta'aleem of their own nafs قَبْلَ تَعْلِيمِ غَيْرِ. Before you want to go out and start saying, I need to teach my kids all this stuff about ahkam and sharia and aqa'id and philosophy and all these things. Okay, no problem, we can get there. What about you? Where's your ta'aleem? Have you trained yourself yet? Have you gone out and educated yourself on this subject? Or are you just trying to solve the problems of your children? And say, well, skip me, just go right to my kids. They're the ones with the issue. وَلْيَكُنْ تَأْدِيبُهُ بِالسِّيرَةِ قَبْلَ تَأْدِيبِ اللِّسَانِ. Let the ta'deeb of your seerah, let this child, in this case child, but anybody that's, you're responsible for, your seerah, your example should be able to discipline somebody and show them the right way before you start to say things to them directly. It's not about just going and giving them some speech or, sit down, let's have a talk about this. They should be able to see it in your actions first. That's how kids learn, especially at a younger age. Giving them all this philosophy about hijab and why we need to connect with Allah, what namaz and salah actually means and all this, it's going to be useless if you and I are not practicing it for our kids to see. If you want them to read Quran, let's say make it a daily habit, okay, are you doing that yourself? Do you do it in a way where they're seeing you doing that? If you want them to read namaz, well, are you making it a habit? You want them to read awwal al-waqt, are you reading awwal al-waqt? Again, very simple points, but a lot of times when I ask parents about this, they say, oh, well, I've got other things going on, so I can't really get around to it. So they want the solution, but they're skipping the teachings of the Ahlul Bayt to get there. So, well, this is not going to work then. The Ahlul Bayt have said, this is the way you have to do it. If you can't get there, then something else is going to go wrong here. وَالْمُعَلِّمِ نَفْسِهِ وَمُؤَدِّبُهَا أَحَقُّ بِالْأَلْجِلَالِ. That this mu'allim, a person who teaches themselves first, who does tahdeeb al-nafs, who disciplines themselves, they have more right to go and start telling other people what to do or to educate them or to guide them. Somebody who's already gone through this sort of hardship of learning and teaching and training themselves, right? Now, when this happens, obviously, there's a few other points that we consider. A lot of times, even for something like when it comes to community issues, when we talk about, we want youth to sit inside. Youth are always outside, we want them to sit inside. Like, okay, that's a valid point, but then I'd say, okay, what about Surah Al-Saf? Surah 61, Ayah 2. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu. Same beginning, right? Mu'mineen, I want you to pay attention. Lima taqulun ma la taf'alun. Why are you telling anybody, especially your children, especially the youth of the community, to do something that you're not doing? If the youth are going to see people sitting outside, then you are, whether directly or indirectly, tacitly or not, you're telling them that it's okay to do so then. If that's what's going to happen, if there will be people outside, then youth will say, then it's fine. If they can do it, then I can do it too. And can we blame them if that's the case? We can't blame them, right? We have no argument then. What are we supposed to do in that case? So if we are not setting the standards properly, then this will come back and bite us. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Now, if you're saying, okay, but what about, still, we have all these socio-political issues, we need to learn about the philosophy of hijab and all this ahkam. So look, no problem. Anytime, and I'm saying this now because maybe it'll come up on Thursday, I'm here. I have specifically set out time for this. Many people, let me change that. Some individuals have come and said, hey, can you sit down with me and go through a full sort of discussion on the philosophy of hijab? I want to understand it first so that I can go and tell my kids about it. Or can you tell me, let's say, the secrets of Salah or something like that, or when we had this course from Mizan. Parents were attending and say, I'll attend that, so that if I want to tell my kids, at least I can say that I went there too. So alhamdulillah, there are many parents here, many grandparents, uncles, aunts, etc., those called seniors, elders, who are going and trying their best, exerting a lot of effort. They're reading, they're researching, they're asking questions, they're looking for more and more and more. And not just for the fact that I want to tell other people. They say, look, I am a jahil in terms of this. I need to educate myself. And then after I do that, then okay, the second benefit of that is I can help others too. Right? Again, madrasa teachers ask me constantly, we have this issue, how do I answer kids about evolution? I said, okay, do you want me just to feed you the answer? Or do you want to sit down with me and go through all the different opinions about Islam and evolution, what actually is Darwinian evolution? Do all biologists actually accept Darwinian evolution, or the alternative theories? Like, that's one whole thing, which technically you can go on Google and find that out yourself, that obviously there's multiple opinions on that. But so the Islamic point, fine. That part of it, we can sit down and then we can go through it. Are you going to, I can make the time. I will always make the time for that. But will you be willing to do that? Will you be willing to sit down, carve out some part of your very hectic weekly schedule and say, look, my family is important. My own nafs is important. And if I don't engage in that, and as we go back and look at this ayah, what is happening over here? Allah is saying, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, qu anfusakum wa ahlikum. Take care of your nafs first, then take care of your family. There's a very specific reason why this is mentioned. That nafs, Allah is saying, you have to take care of yourself first. Alaykum anfusakum, in other parts of the Quran. That look, if you don't take care of yourself first, there is not going to be any effect on anybody else, unless Allah wants it to happen. It's a very simple, practical idea, but some of us, I think we miss the very specific ideas that, no, I have to go and increase my own self in this, do my own ta'deeb wa nafs, try to perfect myself, and that will eventually extend out to my family and my friends and everybody else as well too. There's even another meaning of ahl here, but I don't think we have time for that. Maybe we'll mention that at another point. Now, the final thing here, perhaps maybe the most important part, is this. Okay, so we've said protection. What is that? It's an absolute necessary thing. We have to engage in this protection for ourselves and our family. If we don't do it, then we'll be burnt, literally. Say, okay, well, who's responsible? Everybody is responsible to some degree. For yourself, first and foremost, and then as mother and father, for our family. We keep each other in check as spouses. We keep each other in check. We try to increase our knowledge, learn and grow, set aside time throughout the week to do so. Right? I mean, a lot of times we set aside time maybe for, dunyawi things. You want to take a class in management, that's great. You want to go for your MBA? Bismillah, go ahead. You want to increase more academic things, or as people like to say, I want my children to be more educated. When we say educated, we know what that means, right? It's like, I want them to know STEM, I want them to know programming, I want them to know X, Y, Z. I said, okay. So you've given them given them a shelter, they have a roof over their heads. You're feeding them, so they have food in their bellies, alhamdulillah. Is there any actual spiritual covering for them? Is there any spiritual nourishment that you're offering too? Or is this, again, just a 1 day a week thing? And you're passing the buck on to somebody else and hoping that everything gets solved there? How much effort, again, are we putting in? And is the 6 days out of a week, is there anything else left in our household where we're discussing Islamic issues and bringing it outside? Or is everything, no, get a good job, well, before they get a good job, do well in school, take these extra classes, extracurriculars, do these sports, X, Y, Z. Why? Get a good job. Why do you need a good job? Because you need money. Why do you need money? Because nobody else is going to marry you if you're poor. So you need to do all this, right? Everything's just leading up to that. So dunya, 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 educated, protect yourself. Okay, well, what about, all these other things? We'll figure that out, don't worry. What about Islam? It's okay, they'll figure it out in madrasa. They'll learn their ahkam there, and they'll figure it out. But trust me, that's not what happens. And we've mentioned this so many times. Madrasa is there to complement and supplement what should be happening in the house. 1 day a week is not going to solve all the problems. These volunteers are coming here to the madrasa and taking out time out of their day to try and help and guide our children, which is something that only Allah knows the reward for that. And then when sometimes there's an issue in the class with the student, we say, look, there's something extra that we want them to do. Maybe discuss with your child or do this extra work. The parents say, oh, I don't have time for that. Well, if you don't make the time there, Allah's saying what's going to happen to you and your family eventually. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Okay, now you say, okay, all good. We got this idea of protection. Who should do the protecting? We get all that. But what should we protect ourselves and our families from? There's a lot of stuff going on in the world right now. Where do we start? What do we do? I'm going to stick with just this ayah, because I think everything is right here, just in this beginning part. Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu. So, mu'mineen, qu anfusakum. Protect, to engage in this necessary protection of your own nafs, yourself, wa ahlikum nara, right? And your families from this fire. Waqudaha, the fuel for this fire is what? An-nas wal-hijar. The fuel of this fire that's shadid, that it's harsh, is what? It's people and it's stones. Like, okay, well, what is that? What does that have to do with anything else? The fuel for this fire that the angels are not going to have any mercy with, because they're just commanded to do what Allah says, the fuel is people and fire and people and stones? Like, what's that? So, okay, there's an obvious sort of meaning here, which is, okay, obviously hellfire is filled with, humans, insan, people who disobeyed Allah. It's there. Okay, well, that's obvious. What about stones? Well, some of our riwayat say stones here means idols. So it's filled with idols as well. Now, you might say, oh, okay, that makes sense. But some of you who I think are reflecting a bit deeper say, well, why would hellfire be filled with idols? Idols are not living. They're not doing anything. Why would you put something like that in hellfire? How does that make any sense? So some of the mufassirin say, well, if you are that mu'min that Allah is addressing here, then you're going to think a bit deeper now. You're going to try to look beyond this and say, look, people and stones, what's the relationship here? It's that people, and they have their objects of worship. You have these people who are doing ibadah, and then you have their ma'bud, what they are doing ibadah to. At that time, it was simply stones, it's these idols. But in every generation, isn't there always a group of people and some object of worship that they are addicted to or enamored with and cannot be pulled away from? Every single generation has something. Now the question is, how do you figure that out? How do you learn that? Well, over here we take advice from our sixth Imam, Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq, alayhi salatu wassalam. Allahumma salli. In one hadith, he describes the hikmah of the family of Dawood. He says, "Fi hikmati ali Dawood, ala al-aqil." He says, what is an aqil? What is a person who's truly intellectual, or whatever that word means? Somebody who really uses their aql. Somebody who is aware is what? An yakuna arifan bi zamani. Somebody needs to have ma'rifah, a complete and deep recognition of their time. You need to know what's going on in this era. You have to have an understanding of what's happening over here. Now, this is itself a huge discussion. We did this back in 2020, but just some reminders. We live in an era of isms. ISM, isms. Like what? Individualism, secularism, liberalism, feminism. You can go on and on, all these isms. Each of these isms either is going to be compatible with Islamic thought or it's going to be incompatible. And sometimes there might be some crossover, or sometimes they might be completely antithetical. Like an easy one is individualism. And individualism, or this idea of humanism, is that the human being, insan, is the measure of everything. I get to decide what I want, right? Or in fancy terms, this is the postmodern era. That there is no truth, I get to decide what is true. There is no objective outside morality. Nothing's real except what I say is real. And we've talked about this, right? That's why nowadays people can identify and say whatever they want, because they don't believe there's a reality anymore. What are people doing? أَفَرَأَيْتَ الَّذِي مَنِ اتَّخَذَ إِلَهَهُ هَوَى. Allah called this, years ago. He said, have you seen people who have an object of worship, and what is that object of worship for them? What are they addicted to? What are they enamored with? Their own nafs, their own ego, their own desires, whatever they like. And all these little, catchy phrases that we have here, do you live your truth, be your authentic self, where do you think this is coming from? The stuff that they plaster all over social media, that's on posters in public schools, live your true identity, be who you are. We just passed through a month which completely identified itself with being proud for a specific type of identity. This is completely antithetical to the Islamic mission, to the spiritual mission. In Islam, the idea is that your nafs, your ego, your identity needs to be wiped out completely, and the only thing that needs to be remaining is ana abdullah, that I'm an abd of Allah. That's it. But the other side is saying, no, remove everything else, leave only yourself. Leave only the ana, leave only the I. So this is, if we're talking about pronoun problems, and people talk about nowadays, this is the Islamic pronoun problem over here. Islam says, yes, we disagree with the pronoun, but we don't care about he, she, she, her, and zombie pronouns and all the other stuff that's happening out there. Islam cares about the I, ana, me, man, that. Like that's the pronoun that needs to be destroyed. That ego that lives within all of us, that needs to be slowly destroyed and removed. And because the only thing there that should remain is the commands and the teachings of Allah through the Quran and the Ahlul Bayt alayhimu salatu wassalam. Now, obviously, I'm not going to spend time going through every single ism that is there, but even in Qum, in the Hawza, we had specific classes going through each and every one of these ideologies. Individualism, capitalism, secularism, democracy, all these. Well, democracy is not an ism, but democratism is. Scientism, naturalism, physicalism, positivism. There's so many ideologies out there, and every single one of them is somewhere in our daily lives that we don't know about. Now again, Pride Month was a very obvious version, but in all these movies that are out there, even movies that I enjoy, right? I enjoy myself, my Marvel and DC, these same ideas come out there too. In these movies, they're not just there for entertainment. This is philosophical entertainment. All of this stuff that's coming out is there to go into the subconscious and the psyche of anybody who's watching to change their mind. And if anybody has seen Inception, I'm a big Christopher Nolan fan, Inception was specifically talking about this idea that the movie Inception is doing Inception on all of us. If you know what I'm talking about, then you know what I'm talking about, right? It's showing the idea that these characters, all these actors, are playing out these roles to show you and to change your mindset about something, to get you to think about something in a different way. Why do you think that now all of a sudden there's all these Muslims out there, right, that are representing, Muslim representation? I've already ranted about Ms. Marvel a long time ago, so I won't do that. But all these shows that keep coming out that have quote-unquote Muslims on there, what type of Muslims do they actually show on there? Again, I'm not judging, I'm not saying they're going to hell, I'm not saying they're bad people, but I'm saying, do they represent what we call the traditional Orthodox conservative form of Islam, whether Sunni or Shia? Or do they show the other version? A more progressive and liberal and evolutionary, or whatever word people are using nowadays, right? Modern version of Islam. It's that one. Because they want that to be normalized. They want the people like us, who are maybe the Orthodox traditional type, to say, see, you guys are outnumbered. You're the weird ones. You're the extremists. You practicing and believing all this stuff? No, this is strange for you. Being called a fundamentalist in any other discipline is actually a good thing. If you talk about, like, say, in economics, right? There's the fundamentals of economics. So an economic fundamentalist is actually a good thing. But when it comes to Islam, and Islam's probably, or religion in general, Islam, when you say that I'm a fundamentalist, I believe in the fundamentals of Islam, they put you in a group with a terrorist, right? Like, oh yeah, you're a terrorist now. Because I believe in the authentic teachings of the Quran and Ahlul Bayt, that makes me an extremist? Now, if other people misrepresent it, that's not my problem, that's not my fault. especially when certain governments are the ones who funded all these movements in the first place. But that's for a different Jummah khutbah, right? So all these ideas, if we don't have ma'rifah of where these ideas are coming from, who is speaking about these ideas, even our own Shia speakers who are unfortunately agents of these ideologies, then we're going to lose ourselves, we're going to lose our kids, we're going to lose our families, and we're going to lose our communities. And that's the last point I'll leave you with. When we're saying over here, when Allah's saying, protect your nafs, yourself, and your ahl, your family, some of the mufassirin say, look, don't just take ahl to mean family. Ahl means anybody else who's on the exact same spiritual wavelength as you. Anybody who's ahlul haqq is your ahl too. So it's not just us sitting individually like families. We are one community. When one of us fails, we all fail. When one of us is weak, when one of us becomes a weak link, then we ruin that. But one of us is stronger, we help pull the other person up. That's the way it should work as a community, right? So when we see these deficiencies, it's up to all of us to start taking the necessary precautions and steps to step forward and to protect ourselves as a one giant family in this community. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. One more salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. We are commemorating the tragic shahadat, the two shahadats of Ibrahim and Muhammad ibn Muslim ibn Aqil. These two beloved children who, according to most narrations, were not even teenagers. Some say that they were with Muslim ibn Aqil as he came to Kufa, and then that's when they were captured. The more famous opinion is that they actually had joined, Muslim had come alone, and they were with Imam Hussein. And they were with him the whole time, up until Karbala. They are with the caravan as they were making their way, and they had tried to escape, but they were captured. And they were held in the prisons of Kufa, according to many, for 1 year. I want us to really think about that. Children who are maybe, according to some, 8, 10 years old, these two brothers, 8 and 10 years old, are being put in jail. They're cut off from food. They're given scraps. There's nobody there to see them. And we know how some of these prisons were. Some of them didn't even see daylight. Can you imagine anybody, any one of our community members, our own children, 8 and 10 years old, being stuck in a prison like that? Most of us as adults couldn't handle something like that. For 1 year they were like this. But the riwayat tell us that because they came from the household of the Ahlul Bayt, they were trained by a father like Muslim ibn Aqil, you see that these children were fasting every single day. During the day they were praying. They never lost their iman. They never had shak in the adl of Allah at all. That connection to the Ahlul Bayt never left them because they were taught properly. They had a strong household. They were protected. After this 1 year, finally, one of the guards comes to understand because one of the children says to them, he sees that maybe this guard might be from us, might be a follower of the Ahlul Bayt, might be a Shia. He says, Ya Sheikh, old man, do you know Muhammad? Do you know our holy prophet? He says, yes, of course I do. He says, do you know Abu Talib? Do you know Ali ibn Abi Talib? Do you know Ja'far ibn Abi Talib? Do you know these individuals? He says, yes, of course I know them. He says, we are from their family. You are keeping people from the family of Ali Muhammad here in this jail. When this guard found out about it, he said, then I will sneak you. I didn't know, I'm sorry. He forgave. He brought them food. He let them out and let them sneak out at night. When they came out at night, they found themselves at the house of this kind old woman. But unfortunately, as they were there, this woman said, you have to be careful because my son-in-law is somebody who does not share my love of the Ahlul Bayt. He is not one of us. And if he finds out that you are here, then I fear what he might do to you. And I think even worse than the eventual shahada that would take place when the son-in-law, Harith, finds out about it, is that last night when they were sleeping together. You see how two brothers, two siblings, when they're close to each other, when they have love for each other, when they're taught love for the Ahlul Bayt, when they want to look out for one another, look at the relationship they have. You see the younger one, he tells this older one, because he's feeling a bit anxious, he says, Bhaijan, Bhaiya, he says, I'm feeling a little scared tonight. Can I sleep closer to you tonight? Can I hug you while I sleep tonight? Because I don't know what's going to happen to us tonight. I don't know what will happen to us tomorrow. And when Harith finally comes and finds out that these two children are there, these fugitives, these escapees, he takes them and he brings them to the river. And when he orders his slave to go and
end the lives of these children, the slave refuses and he runs away. Harith orders his son to do the same. His son says, I would rather disobey you than Allah. So he runs away as well. And now Harith himself takes out his sword and begins to want to end the lives of these young children. And they have one final request. They said, please, before we go, will you all let us pray to Allah one last time? Will you all let us offer some rakats of salah before we go? He says, yes, go ahead and offer whatever namaz you want. Just like their own father, just like Muslim, they wanted to leave this world while they were remembering Allah. Some narrations say that while they were doing this, they ended with this famous dhikr. They said, Ya Hayyo Ya Hakim, Uhkum baynana wa baynahu bil haq, Ya Ahkam al Hakimin. Allah, you're the best of judges. Judge between him and us with haq, with truth. He ends their life, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Ridan biqada'ihi wa tasliman li amri. ألا لعنة الله على قوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. صلوات على محمد وآل محمد.
ہوئے جب دونوں دریا پر محمد اور ابراہیم یہی کہتے تھے رو رو کر محمد اور ابراہیم ہوئے جب دونوں دریا پر محمد صبا کہیو یہ اموں سے کہ ہم تیرے ہوئے فدیے کٹا کے دونوں ہے ہم سر محمد اور ابراہیم ہوئے جب دونوں دریا پر محمد ہو ہماری لو خبر جلدی کہ ہے ہم خلد کو راہی خرے ہم دونوں ہے مزتر محمد اور ابراہیم ہوئے جب دونوں دریا ہمارے باپ کو مارا کیا ہے ہم کو آوارہ پھر ہم بھٹکے جو در در محمد اور ابراہیم ہوئے جب دونوں دریا پر میرے بابا خیریت سے ہو میرے بابا خیریت سے ہو سغرا گز سے چونک کر اٹھی بولی سر کو پیٹتی ہوئی ہائے میری نیند اڑ گئی میرے بابا خیریت سے ہو 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 دیکھا آج میں نے کیسا خواب ریت پر پڑے کچھ گلاب چن رہے ہیں جن کو بو تراب خون ہو رہا ہے آفتاب ہائے میری نیند اڑ گئی میرے بابا خیریت سے ہو میرے بابا خیریت سے ہو میرے بابا خیریت سے ہو میرے ایک طرف علم ہے خون میں تر جھک گئی ہے شاہ کی کمر، جا رہی ہے جس طرف نظر، بی بی آخری ہے ننگے سر، ہائے میری نیند اڑ گئی، میرے بابا خیریت سے ہو، میرے بابا خیریت سے ہو، میرے بابا خیریت سے ہو، میرے بابا خیریت سے ہو۔ ایک بچی سینہ پدر ڈھونڈتی رہی ادھر ادھر، باپ سو رہا تھا خاک پر جس کے تن پہ سات سر جدا، ہائے میری نیند اڑ گئی، میرے بابا خیریت سے ہو، میرے بابا خیریت سے ہو، میرے بابا خیریت سے ہو، میرے بابا خیریت سے ہو۔ رحم اللہ حد الفاتحہ۔
السلام علیکم یا رسول اللہ، السلام علیکم یا امیر المؤمنین، السلام علیکم یا فاطمۃ الزہرا سیدتی نساء العالمین، السلام علیکم یا حسن المجتبی حسن الحسین الشہید کربلا، السلام علیکم یا علی ابن الحسین ومحمد ابن علی وجعفر ابن محمد وموسى ابن جعفر وعلي ابن موسى ومحمد ابن علي وعلي ابن محمد والحسن ابن علي والخلف الحجة القائم المهدي حججك إلى عبادك ومنائك في بلادك صلاة كثيرة دائمة. السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن، السلام عليك يا كعبة الإيمان، السلام عليك يا من الإنس والجان، عجل الله فرجك وسحر الله مخرجك وظهورك ورحمة الله وبركاته. اللهم كل وليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.